Ragnarok Online is a Korean MMORPG first released in 2002 that have the roots of its world building based on the manhwa Ragnarok written by Lee Myung-jin. This essay is about my almost 18 years of experience with this 20-year-old game that I love so much. This is all my opinion and a retelling of experiences I had with the game and people I met along the way. I first played a role during the Brazilian server open beta back in 2004 and immediately fell in love with the game. I can't really tell what makes me like it so much, if it's the branching class system together with the unique costume design for each of them, the charm and tale of the 2D sprites and cards, how the world is built blending into its fantasy and real-life culture, or if it's just the fact that this was the first game I really got invested into. It may sound like one of those "during my youth" kind of stories, but at that time, being a gamer wasn't exactly easy. Dial-up connection was still a thing in Brazil, the best broadband connection were around 256 kbps, PCs were expensive and not very good at handling games, finding online information about games wasn't very intuitive, and World of Warcraft was still taking its first steps. Little me was still starting to understand how internet works and what online games are. Counter-Strike was very popular at the time, but as for MMORPGs, there weren't many options known to me and my friends. We knew about Ultima Online, but did not play because it was paid. Move Online, which, although was the prettiest MMO, was just trying to be Diablo, and Tibia, which to this day is still popular in Brazil for running on crazy low specs. And then, RO was launched.
Brasileiro é assim mesmo. Só ter uma novidade que fica todo mundo comentando. A última agora é Ragnarok.
Chegou o Ragnarok. Tem que jogar para acreditar. Acesse.
Ragnarok.
Oh my god. Okay, it's happening.
I learned about this game because two friends played during the closed beta, and were always talking about it. When I had the opportunity, I borrowed the installation CD from one of them and started my journey. Having played only Tibia before RO, I was amazed with how it looked. Walking around as a novice trying to figure out what a class is and how to change into it was the first challenge. To whoever played this game before, I became an archer and had all my stats balanced. After a month, or two, or probably 3, I finally became a hunter and spent a few months on level 60 something. I met people, I learned about most classes and builds, I learned about the high-end guilds that fought for castles, I traveled around the world exploring every map, dungeon, and maze. At this point, the game was officially released and got huge in Brazil. Level Up Games, the publisher of the game at the time, invested a lot in promoting it. Every anime convention had a ton of RO advertisement, sometimes having their own dedicated stage. They even had a TV commercial for it. It was the first time since the release of the Nintendo 64 that I can remember of that I saw a video game being advertised on Open TV. It was mind-blowing. The access method adopted was paid either in mensual subscription or hourly pay. I used it to buy the hourly card with pocket money because of my playing restrictions, and at some point in 2005, one of my friends I mentioned introduced me to a private server. My experience with the game completely changed at this point. The ease in leveling and dropping items let me experiment with every single class in the game. Even classes not released, since BRO is always years behind in content. July of 2006, 2 years after the BRO open beta, came the Transcended class update, and then I decided to jump back to the official server. Now I had my own PC, a not so garbage internet connection, and still was in middle school. I then played for probably 6 months with enough knowledge of the game to make a good build and reach level 99 with a sniper, until some shit happened and I left for good to play on private servers. TLDR of what happened to the server next. Level Up Games launched a store, a free-to-play server which in truth is the most disgusting pay-to-win format ever made for this game. Then a buy-to-play server was launched, which was still pay-to-win. Renewal happens, Level Up loses the rights of the game to our portal, and now in 2021 BRO, according to its own wiki, is still being played on episode 16.1, which was released in Korea in 2015.
I've had it with this jump.
When I say Renewal happened, for most players, this was the turning point of the game. Third classes were introduced, Level cap rose from 99 to 150, endgame content was starting to be entirely focused on instance dungeons, and all the formulas of the game were entirely changed. By the way, the game engine and problems caused by it never got addressed. It did sound exciting at first, but... oh boy, here we go! The Renewal update was introduced in Korea in 2009 with the new third job classes. It was refreshing, but at the same time had a lot of problems, including bugs, janky class balance, and skills that were either broken or irrelevant to the gameplay. Bugs and class balancing usually took years to be addressed. Changes to the formulas made statuses feel between underwhelming and useless, and investing into them was solely for the purpose of getting item bonuses. Endgame content being focused mostly on dark type monsters together with the changes to elemental resistances and overstacking of magic defense, rendered magic classes useless in most scenarios without cash shop items or boss monster cards. Around 2018, classes started to be soft reworked one by one in more regular intervals, but it all changed the day GX was reworked. Then, 4th jobs were released in 2021, the sprites did feel less like a new class and more like an alternative sprite for the 3rd jobs, some of the themes did not make sense, the skill design on paper sounds rushed and lazy, with a new resource that's supposed to be an ultimate kind of thing, but plays at the same level or even worse than regular skills. It is disheartening that the only impression left in me is that the devs don't care about the game anymore, and they are slowly killing it, little by little. Numerous Ragnarok IP titles were released over the years, and the impression given to me as a player is that it's more interesting to the developers of the game to constantly try to reboot and spread the fanbase on lackluster cash grab titles than investing on the game that started it all. In a certain way, it would be the same if Blizzard left Diablo to the flies and focused on mobile games.
Strictly mobile forever.
We don't have any plans at the moment to do PC. Do you guys want to have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
I am a MMORPG lover. There are some titles, like EverQuest or Ultima, that I didn't have the opportunity to play, but everything that was within my reach until probably 2011 I tried. And one game that comes to my mind when I think about all this RO history is a MMORPG as old as RO, but that aged quite well. Nexon's Maplestory. I have a saying to describe how things could have been better. If Gravity gave RO 1/10 of the love Nexon gives to Maplestory, this game would be fucking amazing. Maplestory was released in Korea 1 year after RO. It was a MMORPG that threw you into the game world and left you free to explore it, with the only objective being to get progressively stronger as you level up to visit harder zones. It has a similar branching class system, but adopted a tBark feel to its modern leveling progression, giving many story scenarios for the player to explore. If the scenarios felt repetitive, or just uninteresting, the player could just grind and quest around the world. This game is also known for doing collabs with anime series and always having seasonal events. Curiously, it went through a very similar process that RO had with the Renewal, called Big Bang. With the Big Bang update, the game pacing changed to be faster on lower levels, making them more of a tutorial part of the class instead of being an obstacle to overcome. All classes were redesigned to be more flashy and avoid being sluggish, so the gameplay would feel overall more satisfying. But most importantly, the game was remodeled to reward the player for having many characters instead of playing only one, so new classes could be released without players feeling restrained from starting a new character. The Big Bang update was introduced in 2010, and for the last decade, the game saw a lot of changes and reworks to fit their new design goals. And although not as frequent as some games do, it gets patched and classes get adjusted so most of them can be enjoyed. Maple has over 40 unique classes. I'm certain that the pandemic is to blame, but 2020 was the year with the biggest revenue growth for Maplestory since its launch. And I'm sure it was possible through the effort to constantly address and please their player base with a game that doesn't feel stagnated or forgotten.
You're tearing me apart, Lisa!
Ragnarok Online was developed by Gravity but not all servers were managed by them. Every official server is its own beast. They got independent control over update schedules, how broken cash shop items are, events, and even gacha items are under the publisher's discretion. If you ask 10 veteran BRO players what they think about level up games, I bet at least 8 of them will tell you something bad. From connectivity problems being normal, to how customer services treated them, or how the company tried to manage the server over the years in disregard to the player base. When I said I played in 2006 then left after some shit happened, this is what happened. In those 6 months I played since I got back, I got hacked 3 times. After the first, I made the unique password for this game and never shared it. 3 times. Someone got hold of my password and stole my items. Every single time, the customer service answer was, "Well, that sucks. We can't help you. Bye." The following year of 2007 I thought, oh, I think I'll try BRO again. And when I tried logging in, my account was gone due to inactivity. And their answer was again, "Not our problem." I have a friend that had IRO as his home server, and his experience was completely different. To the point he trusted the publisher enough to buy stuff on the cash shop without the fear of having his account stolen. Like, this is legit weird for me. You might be asking, if IRO gave you such a hard time, then why are you wasting your time talking about a dead game? And my answer to it is, most of it was me talking about my experience in official servers. RO has a very interesting player base. On the first look, you have the official servers with their own rabbit hole. Then, there are the private servers. You could say that nowadays there are pretty much 3 versions of RO that are based on the mechanics chosen to run it. Renewal servers, pre-renewal servers, and more obscure but recently released Ragnarok 0. Some of them replicate the game experience without having to spend hundreds of with full access to cash shop items. Some try to be vanilla and keep only items the game had by default. Some go downhill with no breaks and let players have infinite attribute points and so on. But there is one more version of RO that is kind of a hidden gem, which are the custom servers that go out of their way to redesign the game entirely. I've seen servers using the game as base to make something else, like emulating Pokemon for example. But what really got me off guard recently and rekindled my desire to play this game, and also inspired me to talk about it, was a server that literally redesigned everything and gave me a fresh experience with the good old RO. All classes were addressed to have their own identity and be actually playable. Class progression was changed to avoid the rebirth mechanic entirely. Game formulas were changed to make stats more coherent. Super Novice is a real class! It took me a good hour to read all the changes made to this one. The server feels like a passion project, and it's not the job of the people behind it. But from a player perspective, I feel there's a lot more thought and love in it than the official game had in a long time, or will ever have. Whenever, by the gods, an update happens, it's just frustrating to see lazy new content poorly made, and all problems that never got solved still haunting us to this day. I'm not an optimistic person, and I really believe there is no fix for what Gravity's development team is doing, since the game isn't the most profitable of their franchises. But after years, I once again felt a refreshing experience playing RO. Not starting over the same game like I did hundreds of times, but something genuinely good, that makes me want more, to play, to learn, to explore, to experience it all over, built by the RO community. Seeing a game that gave me so much joy, being left to die, is disheartening. But for once, I can see light at the end of the tunnel. Good things can come, as long as there is someone willing to reinvent it.